Welcome to Financial Insider Weekly. I'm your host, Michael Gray. My guest is Sharon Lacey. Sharon is a wealth manager at United Capital Financial Advisors in Los Altos, California. She began her career as a computer engineer working for Hewlett-Packard, and in 2005 she decided to pursue her interest in financial planning, and she became a certified financial planner in 2009, and then a certified private wealth advisor, professional in 2014. She's a member of the Financial Planning Association and the National Academy of Social Insurance, and she's spoken regionally and nationally about Social Security planning. And I actually attended one of Sharon's presentations, and I thought it was so good I asked her to come and join me here today. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about Social Security filing strategies for married couples and how your options have changed in light of changes in the Social Security law introduced by the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015. And in a previous session or interview, we discussed some basics related to Social Security. You can find that interview online under past episodes at financialinsiderweekly.com. Sharon, thank you for joining me.
You're so welcome.
Okay. So maybe you can just remind us how you decided to become an expert in Social Security.
Yeah, in about 2008, a lot of financial planners were getting very excited about some of the filing strategies for married couples. And I heard a lot about those and started to try to figure out how to implement some of those for my clients. But it's very complex. Social Security is very complex, and it doesn't seem like it's very complex perhaps, but when you consider the different filing ages and the different benefit levels that people have, it can actually get very complex, and there's not a lot of information available either at the Social Security website or just online in general. They tend to oversimplify the explanations that they provide. And so I just started digging in very deeply and actually even implemented a tool to optimize Social Security.
Okay. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about some of the rule changes that have happened recently and how they impact married folks.
Yes, President Obama actually had proposed this 2 or 3 years ago, and it actually did get implemented in October of this year, and it was a complete surprise to all of us that do Social Security planning. We were really, really blindsided by it. But in October, Congress eliminated what President Obama called aggressive filing strategies. And these were strategies that were really and truly, they were a loophole in the Social Security Act that had been implemented because of a language oversight by the Congress. But they were perfectly legal. Mm-hmm. And someone figured these out in about 2008, and financial planners started doing a lot of these strategies. And I think it actually had almost no impact on Social Security with regard to their bottom line. But I think it was a little bit embarrassing to Social Security that financial planners were taking advantage of these opportunities. And the other thing is that it really took someone who had a financial planner, who could afford to have a financial planner, or who was very conversant with the rules of Social Security to figure out that it was possible to do this and to actually implement those strategies.
Okay. So these, I guess we're saying though, these strategies, or this particular strategy that was being implemented, is no longer available.
Well, it's partially available. What got taken away, there were two things that got taken away. One was the ability to use, there's a provision in Social Security where you can suspend your benefits once you reach full retirement age. So if you filed at 62 and at 66, if that's your full retirement age, you decided that that was not a good idea to have filed at 62, you can suspend your benefits, and that is still possible. But what Congress did is they said, okay, if you're going to suspend your benefits, that's fine, but every benefit that is dependent on you having filed for your benefit is also suspended. So that was a change that didn't used to be true. And that went away as of April 29th. On April 29th, you had to be 66, and you actually had to implement what was called the file and suspend strategy in order to do that.
Say
Go ahead.
April 29th, 2016, because who knows when you guys are going to see this.
Yeah.
So, okay, go ahead.
So the flip side of that strategy is something that is generally called restricted application. Now that is still available if you were 62 on or before January 1st, 2016.
Mm-hmm.
You can still use the restricted application strategy, but you may be limited because in order to implement that strategy, your spouse has to already have filed for their benefit. And so if there's a significant difference in age, and so your spouse has already filed because perhaps they delayed until 70 and they've already filed, and you're just reaching full retirement age, you still have the option to do a restricted application. And that will be ongoing for the next 8 years until the person who turned 62 on January 1st reaches 70.
So maybe you can explain a little bit to us about what the restricted application means.
Yes, as I said, there was a loophole in the language of the Social Security Act, which allowed for something that is called deemed filing. Now, deemed filing, you may have heard that in the literature, but what that basically says is if you walk into the Social Security office and you say, I'd like to take my spousal benefit, Social Security will look at your benefit and at your spousal benefit, and they will give you the one that is the higher of the two, and that is called deemed filing. So the Social Security Administration, before you could actually earn what's called delayed retirement credits by delaying from full retirement age to 70. Before that, Social Security basically said the deemed filing rule no longer applies when you reach full retirement age, because at that time, that was as late as you would file for your benefit. So, but because they then proceeded to extend it so that you could delay the onset of your benefit until 70, during that period from age 66 or your full retirement age until 70, you could file for a spousal benefit and not be forced to take your own benefit. And so that is what restricted application is. And literally what you do is when you apply for your benefit, you say, I want to file for my benefit, but I want to restrict the scope of my application to my spousal benefit. And when you put those magic words, if you qualify, and you put those magic words onto your application and your full retirement age, and your spouse has already filed, then you will receive your spousal benefit and still delay your own benefit and continue to earn delayed retirement credits on your own benefit.
Okay, so you get the spousal benefit, but your own benefit might be higher if you were in fact working, and so you could have qualified for more. But then what it's doing is you're accruing additional benefit by doing this.
The classic example of this is you have a spouse who is earning whose benefit is $2,000, and you have another spouse whose benefit is $1,000. Now, if the lower earning spouse filed at full retirement age, they would receive $1,000 because they're going to get their full retirement age benefit. However, if they have the option to file a restricted application, a spousal benefit is defined as being 50% of your spouse's benefit. And so you could, at full retirement age, file a restricted application, and 50% of your spouse's benefit is $1,000. So you could receive the same $1,000 you would have received if you had filed for your own benefit, but now you're receiving a spousal benefit, and your own is continuing to grow by 8% per year. So when you finally file for your own benefit at 70, you're going to be receiving $1,320 instead of $1,000 for the rest of your life.
Wow. Okay. So maybe you feel like you've covered this already, but I'll ask you maybe to reiterate. How are spousal benefits computed? And then, and what choices do you have in this process?
Actually, I haven't covered it, and it's much more complex than people realize. I often get calls from people saying there must be a bug in your calculator because the benefit that you've calculated for me isn't what I expected, and it's generally because the person does not understand how spousal benefits are calculated. So your spousal benefit is actually composed of your own benefit and what Social Security calls an auxiliary benefit. Your spousal bump up is what I like to think of it as. And so, for example, if your spouse's full retirement age benefit was $2,000, your spousal benefit by definition is $1,000.
Yeah.
Exactly, half of their benefits. So when you come to full retirement age, the way the Social Security actually calculates it, let's say your benefit is $200. What they actually do is they take, $800. They take your $800 and they add $200 of an auxiliary benefit.
So they add the $200 to get you up to half of your spouse.
Exactly. Now, they're really two separate benefits. So you could actually file for your benefit at 62. So if you did, you'd get 75% of your benefit, or $600. And let's say you didn't file for your spousal benefit until you were full retirement age. So that $200 doesn't get reduced because you're filing for the spousal benefit at your full retirement age. And so you would get $200. And so you would end up with your own benefit of $600 because you took it early, and your spousal, your auxiliary benefit of $200. So you'd end up with a benefit of $800 because it's composed of these two different parts.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, so you need to look at this whole thing, the jigsaw puzzle of how it all fits together, and whether you want to do the early benefit thing that reduces your basic benefit. But you're saying is that you can make elections for the two pieces at different times.
Well, unfortunately, that was one of the other things that got taken away in October by Congress.
Okay.
Before, you could say you could file for your own benefit at 62, and then you had to wait until your spouse filed for their benefit before you could use your spousal bump up. But you could choose to delay that until your full retirement age and get 100% of your spousal benefit. One of the things that Congress changed is that now, if you file early for your benefit at 62, if your spouse files for their benefit before you reach full retirement age, they force you to take a reduced auxiliary benefit now. And so if you file for your own benefit at 62, and then you file for, and then your spouse files for their benefit when you're 64, you're going to be forced to take a reduced spousal auxiliary benefit to add to that. And so you're not going to ever get up to 100% of your spousal bump up.
So that's very tricky then. So the decisions for each of the spouses has an impact on the other, I suppose.
Yes.
And wow, that's really, really something. Okay. Okay, now here's one that maybe on some people's minds, and I suppose everybody knows because they talk about it at the bridge club or at the hairdresser. What happens to spousal benefits when a married couple divorces?
If you were married for at least 10 years, you will be able to receive benefits as if you were still married to that individual. There is one slight difference, which is that most people have to wait to get their spousal benefit until their spouse is filed for their benefit. But the Social Security, and that used to be the case. As a matter of fact, it used to be the case that only women were entitled to spousal benefits. And then, with the changing social demographics, they realized that that really wasn't fair, and so they changed it so that any spouse is entitled to a spousal benefit. But they actually set it up now so that, I'm sorry, I forgot exactly what your question was.
Well, about when a married couple divorces.
Oh, yes, a divorced couple. So what they realized, though, is that spouses who were divorced, they basically had power over their ex-wives or husbands because they could delay the onset of their own benefit, and that would have an impact on their ex-spouse. So Social Security decided that probably wasn't fair. So now, if your ex-spouse is 62 or older, it is as if they have filed. And so you can now file for a spousal benefit based on their record. Now, if someone gets married several times and is married for 10 years and a day to every single one of those spouses, they can have multiple spouses that are actually receiving a spousal benefit on their record. So the spousal benefit, and it does not reduce the worker's own benefit.
Yeah.
So if you were married for 10 years, then you can receive a spousal benefit just as if you were still married to that individual.
Okay. But now you've mentioned the multiple marriage situation. I take it that there's a cap. You know, I would think that you would just get the largest benefit for.
Yes. If you
different spouses.
you can only receive a spousal benefit if you're still single.
Okay.
So if you have remarried and you're currently married, then you can never get a benefit on your ex-spouse. However, if you have been married and divorced several times, you have the option of picking the largest spousal benefit that works for you.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, so then there's the flip side, or another side of this. What about survivors' benefits?
Mm-hmm. So just like a spousal benefit is defined to be 50% of your spouse's full retirement age benefit. And by the way, that's 50% of their full retirement age benefit regardless of when they actually file for their own benefit. So they could file at 62 and you would still be getting 50% of their full retirement age benefit. So that's the definition of a spousal benefit. The definition of a survivor's benefit is that if your spouse dies before they claim their Social Security benefit, if they were younger than their full retirement age, the Social Security Administration gives you the benefit of the doubt and assumes that they would have waited until their full retirement age. So your survivor's benefit is by definition your deceased spouse's full retirement age benefit. If they died after their full retirement age, but they had not yet filed, it would be the benefit based on the month that they died. So that would be the definition of your survivor's benefit. Now, if they have already filed, it is whatever they were receiving when they passed. Now, one of the other things that Social Security does for you is makes the assumption it does not penalize a widow or widower if their spouse filed early. So if your spouse filed at 62 and is receiving 75% of their benefit, Social Security says, well, we don't really want to penalize the widow for that, and so we're going to guarantee that their survivor's benefit by definition is going to be at least 82.5% of their deceased spouse's full retirement age benefit. Now, that's the definition of the spousal benefit. If you file for that benefit early, it will get reduced.
Right, that's what I was going to ask. When does the survivor, when can they apply for that benefit?
They can apply for the benefit, unlike a spousal benefit or your own benefit where you cannot file until you're 62. You can apply for a survivor's benefit at 60. And you will have a reduction. And for someone whose full retirement age is 66, the reduction in the survivor's benefit, if you file for it at 60, is 71.5%.
Wow.
I'm sorry, the amount they will receive is 71.5%.
That's not a reduction.
Yeah, it's not the reduction. It's the amount they'll receive is 71.5%. There are strategies where you can actually, just like we talked about coordinating spousal benefits, there are ways to actually also coordinate survivor's benefits, and that is one of the things that did not get taken away with the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015.
Wow. Okay. A lot of stuff to think about here, but the other thing that we're saying though is that you could apply at age 60, but if your normal retirement age would be age 66, then to get the full benefit you'd have to wait till that age, and then you would also be able to do the deferral to age 70. Is that right? And
exactly. Coordinating survivor's benefits is a little bit tricky, but what you have to look at is you have to look at what would be your survivor's benefit if you were you need to compare the benefits for your age 70. So, for example, if your survivor's benefit is $1,000 and your benefit is $1,000, the $1,000 is the most that your survivor's benefit is going to get because it doesn't earn delayed retirement credits. But your own benefit, if you delayed until 70, would be $1,320. And so you look at the two and you figure out at age 70, what would I actually be receiving? And you pick the higher of the two, and then you can coordinate those, because the deemed filing rule does not apply for survivor's benefits, where I said that if you walked in and applied for it, they'd give you the higher of the two. So, for example, let's say that your spouse died when you were 58. At age 60, if it's appropriate, you can walk into the Social Security office and file for survivor's benefit at age 60, and you're going to receive 71.5% of that benefit. And then you can delay your own benefit until 70,
Okay.
and then switch to your own benefit. If it makes more sense because of the relative size of the benefits, you could actually file for your own benefit at 62 and take that benefit until you were 66, and then switch to your survivor's benefit, because your survivor's benefit does not increase after your full retirement age.
Okay.
And so it's possible to actually get the best of both worlds. Now, there are some limits with regard to how long you have to have been married. You have to have been married for at least 9 months in order to. So the Social Security is trying to avoid deathbed gifts of Social Security benefits.
Yes.
So you have to have been married for at least 6 months before you can qualify for a survivor's benefit.
Yeah. That can be kind of a tragedy. And my sister was married for a month when her husband passed away.
Yes.
So anyway.
Well, and it turns out that if the death was because of an accident, Social Security will actually forgive that requirement.
In this case, it wasn't. But anyway, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's good to know, though.
Yes. Yes.
So there are little backstops. So if it was an accident, then you can still get your benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's good to know.
And just as a follow-on to spousal benefits, if you're divorced and you were married for 10 years, you can also get a survivor's benefit on your deceased ex-spouse's record. And in that case, you can remarry, but you have to remarry after age 60.
Okay.
So if you are divorced and you remarry after age 60, you can actually make a choice of whether or not it's more appropriate to take your deceased spouse's survivor's benefit or your current spouse's spousal benefit.
Oh boy.
And if your current spouse dies, you can also make a choice about which is the better survivor's benefit.
Wow. Okay. But one thing just to make it clear is that we said, or you said, that if you are applying for a survivor's benefit, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that once you're past your normal retirement age, for that benefit, if you did a deferral, you cannot get any additional. But if you had your own account because you were working, that account could continue to grow in value because you've deferred that one. So then you can do that selective.
Exactly. So your own benefit would receive delayed retirement credits of 8% per year, but your survivor's or your spousal benefit doesn't earn delayed retirement credits, and so your full retirement age is the last you should consider.
See, folks, why I decided to do this program on just the marital side, because it is really quite something. Okay. Well, let's see here. So we have some resources. So one, we have this guide that you were talking about here. So the Social Security Claiming Guide. And how can people get this?
This is it can be found online. It's from the Center for Retirement Research at Boston College. And you can either go on their website and get a PDF copy of this and print it out, or if you want this really nice booklet, you can actually contact them and they'll send you a copy of the booklet. And it covers the basics of filing strategies. It doesn't get very much into complexity, but at least you have a good resource for that information.
Okay. Now also, you have put on the internet
Mm-hmm.
your planning device,
Yes, my
your
calculator.
calculator.
Yes.
And so that information will be at the end of this show for the website that we list there. And otherwise, if you don't have enough time to see it there or whatever, well, one, you may be able to freeze it when we put this online under our Financial Insider Weekly show. Also, then you could get in touch with Sharon, and she can tell you how to get to it.
Yes, and I want to assure people that we don't ask you for your email address, we don't ask for anything. You can anonymously use the calculator. This is not a lead.
It's just sort of a public service.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we just have about a minute left. Maybe you'd like to throw out a couple of final thoughts here.
I guess the most important thing is that I want people to think of Social Security as longevity insurance. It's very important with regard to living, if you live a very long time, that you have as much retirement income as you possibly can have. And the best way to achieve that is through delaying Social Security. I was at a financial planning conference and everyone agreed that this is far superior to an annuity. This is far superior to even continuing to save and not withdraw from your IRA. Delaying Social Security is probably the most important retirement planning decision you're going to make.
Okay. Sharon, I want to thank you for being my guest, sharing this information with our viewers. And we're going to have this on our website again, financialinsiderweekly.com, under past episodes. You may want to tell your friends or family members about this interview and have them watch it. You might want to watch it again. So I hope that we've given you some really valuable information here, and we'll see you next time on Financial Insider Weekly.